Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to be explaining to you what the static keyword is all about. I first came across the static keyword in Java. I never knew that there was any such thing as the static keyword in JavaScript. So I'm going to be doing my best to explain to you what it's all about and how it's being used. Alright, before I write some codes, let me just give you a brief explanation of what the static keyword does. The static keyword is used in a class so that you don't need to instantiate that class to make use of that variable with which the static keyword is used on. Okay, let's write some codes. So I create a class. Okay, a class named person, then create some variables: name, age, sex. Then I'll use the static keyword over here. Sorry, I need to write semicolons here. So I'll use the static keyword over here, static. I'll use it on counter. Alright, so I will assign it to 0. Alright, so what next? I'm going to create a constructor. My bad, typos. Constructor, then pass in name into it, then I pass in age, then I also pass in sex into it. So I'll go ahead to assign those variables to these other variables. So this name is equal to name, then this dot age is equal to age. Let's just use semicolons here for the case of consistency. Then this dot sex is equal to sex. Alright, so now this is a class that is named or that answers person. In JavaScript we don't need to do this. We don't need to name the variables here before we do that assignment inside it. Actually, these variables here all stand for these ones. These ones don't stand for these ones. This one stands for these ones. But due to how JavaScript is now, we don't need to assign these ones here. So I can choose to remove it. I won't have any typos. I won't have any error. But I will leave it here for certain reasons. So now these ones are being assigned here into these variables of this constructor function. So now this is the static keyword. It's being used on this counter. So now I'm going to create some instances of this person class to show you the effect of this keyword on this variable. So let's get that done. So I'm going to create an object from person. So new person, then I'll pass in the required arguments. So I'll call him Marvel. By the way, Marvel is my nickname. Then I'll give him the age of probably 18. Then I will give him a sex of male because I'm male. Yeah. So next thing, okay. Well, okay. Sorry, I forgot to insert an equal to sign there, an assignment sign there. So now, okay, what's going to happen is that I'm going to try to access this value and then this value using this object, then we'll see what we get. So before we get that done, I have to spin up the console over here. So I'll press Ctrl+Shift+I, and then okay, so I'll go to the console so that whatever code I write here is going to reflect or is going to be run here. So let's try to access the name property of the Marvel object. So I'll write console log Marvel dot name. Alright, so it's not running. What's the matter? Sorry, my bad. This should be small letter M. Marvel.name should run now. Oh, sorry, I didn't link my JavaScript. Okay, I'll do that here. So that's okay. Do you see scripts, then main.js. Okay, so okay, now reflects. Okay, let me just insert differ here in case of necessity. So okay, so reflects. So now, as you can see, when I try to console log marvel.name, it gives me marvel, which is meant to give me, which that's how it's meant to be. So now let's try consoling. Let's try logging marvel.counter and see what happens. All right, now you can see that it gives us undefined. Okay, now let's try running. Okay, before we do what I want us to do next, let me see explain something. The reason why counter, the reason why marvel.counter gives us undefined is simply because the counter variable only applies to the person class. It does not apply to an instance of this class. So as such, all instances of this class will never have access to this variable. It will only be this class that can access it. So let me show you something. So let's do this. So I'll say person does counter. Now did you see that? So as you can see now, person does counter happens to have access. The person class happens to have access to the counter because it's static. It doesn't depend, or it doesn't need an instance of this class to be defined or to be ready to get used. I don't know if you understand. So that's basically just it. So as you can see, person counter happens to give us the value. It doesn't give us undefined or any such thing. Apart from values or properties, this static keyword also applies to methods. Okay, I'm going to create two methods. One will be a static. Okay, one will be a normal method that is not static, and the other will be a static method. So now let me create the one that is not static. So I'll call it not static. Then so we'll log this on the console. Not a static function. Then we'll create another one. I'm going to duplicate this downwards by pressing shift alternate down. All right, so I'll call this static. Okay, is static. Then I'll give it a keyword of static. All right, so that works. Now let's try using this function using an instance of this class, and then we'll do the same to using an instance of this class, and then we'll see what we will get. So I'm going to do marvel dot not static. Now let's run this function. As you can see, it gives us not a static function. So this was because it's not a static function. So now let's try that on the not on the static function. So I duplicated that down by pressing shift alternate down. So now come over to is static, and let's see what we get. Okay, sorry. Okay, as you can see now, it doesn't work because you see that marvel dot is static is not a function. As you can see that marvel, the instance of this person class marvel, or any instance at all, we never have access to this static function. You get? So now the only way we can have access to it is by simply doing this. Sorry. Type person dot is static. All right, so we do this. As you can see, sorry, it works, but I have to type this a static function. So as you can see, person dot is static happens to have access to, sorry, person, the class person happens to have access to this function. Why? Because this function is static. So as you can see, the message is being displayed on the console. All right, before I round up this video, I'm going to show you something cool. Do you know that we could use static properties to count the number of times that a class has been used to create instances? All right, let me show you how that is done. So I'm going to come over to our class person and make some changes to the constructor. So I'll type this dot underscore id is equal to person dot counter. So that is that. All right, I'm going to be incrementing it. So what happens here is that before the operation is carried out, before we assign person dot counter, which happens to be 0, to this underscore id, person dot counter will be incremented by 1. But in this case, after we have assigned person dot counter to this underscore id, then person dot counter will be incremented by 1. So we're not making use of this. I'll delete that and then we'll make use of this. So now what will happen here is that each time an instance is created, each time an instance of this person class is created, this constructor function will be run. I believe you all know that. And once it's run, once this constructor function has been invoked or has been called, this line of code too will also be run, and then person dot counter will be incremented, and then the value will be assigned to this dot id. So this counter variable will no longer be 0, it's going to increment. Okay, let's write codes to explain how this stuff works. Okay, so I'm going to create more instances of this person class so that I can keep on increasing the value of person dot counter. So I'll get that done. All right, so this has been done. I've happened to create 2 more instances of this class. So now we're going to access the IDs of each of these instances. As we access the ID of Melody and James, and then we're going to access the value of person dot counter to see what we will get. So let's start with James. Okay, let's start with Melody and then we do for James. So console log, sorry, that didn't work. Console log, then Melody dot underscore id. All right, now as you can see, Melody has an id of 2. Okay, that is to say that Melody has been initialized as the second instance or object of this class. Understand? So what happens is that at first it was 0. So once this constructor function is being called, what happens here is that first of all, the person dot counter variable will be incremented by 1, and then an assignment will take place to this dot underscore id. So that has happened until the instance of Melody. Hence, person dot counter was 2 during the assignment to this dot id. So that's what happens there. So let's do the same for James. Shift alternate down to duplicate downwards. Then I write James here. All right, so James gives us 3. So James is the third object that has been initialized on the class, on the person class. Now let's try accessing the value of person dot counter. All right, So can you see this now? This 3 here now, this 3 here now happens to be the value that we get for person.counter. So now this tells us that person has been initialized, the class person has been initialized, has been instantiated thrice. That is to say that 3 objects or 3 instances has been created from person dot from the class, from the person class. That is, as you can see that in line 37. So line 37. So that is for this one, and then for james.id, that is line 35, and that is line 35. So that's pretty much what the static keyword is all about. So to summarize, static keyword is simply used to tell JavaScript, or to tell so it's simply using our code to tell that a given property or a given function or method can only be used by the given class, and it can't be accessed or used by instances of that class. It has to be used by that class. So that's what it's all about. So I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, I ask that you like this video and that you subscribe to my channel for more content like this. So thank you for watching my video. I hope to see you next time. Bye.